question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the honourable member for Forrest.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and can I commend to the House the words and the contributions of the members in the electorates in which this card has been working. And I've listened to each one of them speak, and they have been profound in their comments, but none of them have been consulted in this process either about what Labor is planning to do here. The member for Durack has spoken very eloquently right now from a point of actual experience, not ideology, from experience in her community that she knows very, very well. We've seen the same thing from the member for O'Connor and his experience in the goldfields in Western Australia, both of these Western Australian electorates. And both of you have spoken directly to the impacts that this particular measure has had in your communities. Of all people who would know, it's these members, including the member for Grey from South Australia, who's had a community using the cashless debit card as well and seen profound impacts from that. Also, we earlier heard from the member for Hinkler. And can I commend everyone who's watching this now to actually go back and have a look at the Hansard or have a look at the contributions by each one of these members who can speak from experience of what the access to the cashless debit card has done in their communities. They actually know because they live it, and they're there with their communities and they care most about their communities. I'd also like to recommend the contribution by the member for Aston, the Shadow Minister for Education. Just a profound and important contribution that was made on this. And, Mr Deputy Speaker, like I hope all members in this House, and certainly the members that I've spoken about, we are profoundly concerned for the most vulnerable, the ones who expect the members who've just spoken to speak on their behalf, and they have, those vulnerable children and families and women. And, Mr Deputy Speaker, one of the communities that I visited some time ago in my previous role, where I met some Aboriginal elder women, and they were doing amazing work in their community, but they were very forthright with me about the challenges their community faced. And I can only say to the member for Durack how important this card is as part of that. And the response. But equally there was a group who would drive around at night, some wonderful Indigenous people who spent their evening driving around collecting young children from wherever they were in their community and taking them home. But also it was interesting how often they would wait so that the young people could look in the windows or in the doors of those premises and decide whether they would go in or get back on the bus because of what was going on. And so that's the real world for these young people and for women in these communities. And I would say that this government bill gives an absolute green light to more alcohol, more drug abuse and violence in at-risk communities, which the members have spoken about so eloquently tonight. And this now sits with Labor. This is a very profound decision that you have made. And I would say to you, you need to be very directly aware of the impact of this decision and what harm this will bring to those communities. And we've seen just what benefits that these have brought. And previous members have spoken on this. A 41% of participants surveyed who drank alcohol reported drinking less frequently, and that's a very good result. 48% of participants surveyed who used drugs reported using drugs less frequently. And there were lots of evaluations, dozens of the cashless debit card, and they provided consistent evidence about quarantining policies that show a decrease in drug and alcohol issues, decreases in crime, violence and antisocial behaviour, improvements in child health and wellbeing. What a fantastic outcome. An improvement in child health and wellbeing. Well, I'm sure the member for Durack and the members present would all be part of that as being a reason that this cashless debit card is so important and is making a difference. Improvement in financial management and ongoing, and here's a wonderful result, ongoing and even strengthened community support. What a great set of outcomes. And here we have a Labor government ripping that away. That does not matter. That is not important. And yes, to us, it is. And the members, as I've spoken about, who've been so supportive of this and worked so hard to get the card into their communities, they understand very well how important this is and what a difference it's made. Made real difference to real lives, particularly children and women. And they're the people who are going to suffer most. And I am absolutely appalled by that decision. Absolutely appalled. And we haven't seen the consultation. There's been no consultation, to my knowledge, in the goldfields. No consultation at all. And we're going to see what happens from here. I don't know what the government is going to do in relation to alcohol, gambling and illegal drugs from here. It sits with you now. And how you're actually going to manage from here. I know the member for Grey has spoken out very strongly on this issue, and in his community in Ceduna, the difference it's made there. And he has spoken very strongly about this, but he is very, very concerned about the impact, and rightly so. And he did say that his community, and we've heard repeatedly in this place how communities were consulted and were very much part of it. I think the member for Aston spoke very strongly about this and what a difference that would make in the design and delivery. Mr Deputy Speaker, the member for O'Connor also said that the mayors in the goldfields are bracing themselves for an increase in antisocial behaviour. And I would quote the member for O'Connor in a previous speech, and he represents the constituents of the goldfields, and he said it's accepted by far more retailers, and nothing could be further than the truth than saying it was that it was stigmatising, because it was able to be used and used very effectively. And I understand that not one Labor MP or senator has engaged with the goldfields. This is what the member for O'Connor said, nor asked the member for O'Connor, nor the member for Durack, and nor the member for Grey about the actual impacts of this card that's operated, or the member for Hinkler in their particular electorates. And I find that astounding when making such a profound decision that affects the lives of our most vulnerable, women and children. And this is something this parliament should never forget. The most vulnerable are at risk, and are at greater risk now, because of the removal of this cashless debit card. And, Mr Deputy Speaker, I think all of us would agree that reducing alcohol, reducing drugs, increased school attendance, more food for children, I think that's a great idea. I know the member for Durack thinks that's a great idea for the young people in her electorate. A reduction in domestic and sexual violence. What fantastic outcomes. And that's why we're here in this place. They're exactly the issues that we are here to represent on behalf of our communities. And the government is now responsible for any increase in harm to children and families in the communities that currently have access to the cashless debit card. This now sits with the government. And I speak in this House to represent those who aren't being heard, those who would and will be most impacted by any change to the CDC in the electorates that we've spoken about tonight. But I do want to commend and recommend that for those of you who have not read or listened to the contributions by the members here who have the CDC in their electorates, can I encourage you to do so? The member for Durack, the member for O'Connor, the member for Grey, the member for Hinkler, and of course the a shadow minister for education. I commend their contributions to you all and encourage you to read and listen to those.